I mean, it was horrible, and this guy was sweating all over me. Like, his sweat was like, it was raining basically everywhere, and I was just like, what? He was an abuser. He was a participant.
Virginia says she was 17 when this photo was taken with the prince in Maxwell's London townhome.
Professional relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Maxwell was among Epstein's closest associates.
You've probably heard of infamous criminal duos. History is studded with a lot of them. Bonnie and Clyde, Joseph and Jenny Carrier, Carla Homolka and Paul Bernardo, and the list goes on and on. Talk about giving love a bad name. For this video, the particular woman is half of yet another criminal couple. But wait, who exactly is Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein? And what were the events that led up to their arrest? Well, that's exactly what we're going to be talking about on Ghislaine Maxwell's arrest and unsealing of documents explained. Be forewarned, this is going to be a bumpy ride. Just a warning for all our viewers. We're going to be talking about sensitive topics like sexual assault and sexual violence against women and children, and the role that Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein played in the propagation of both during their time as part of the New York City elite. This is Business Explained. To learn more about all things money, get educated about how to do business, become business savvy, and enjoy more videos like these, subscribe to my channel and click on the notification bell and you may be granted with many, many sweet returns. So just who is Ghislaine Maxwell? Ghislaine Maxwell, born Ghislaine Noelle Marion Maxwell, was born on December 25th, 1961 in Masons, Lafayette, France. She's the youngest of 9 siblings. Her father was Robert Maxwell, a well-known Czechoslovak-born British media proprietor. She and her siblings spent their childhood at a 53-room mansion called Headington Hill Hall, which was located in Oxford. This was where Robert Maxwell's publishing company, Pergamon Press, was holding its office. She was said to be the favorite child out of all 9 children, which might make you say she had quite the charmed life growing up. And that did not change when she reached adulthood. She became a prominent member of the London social scene in the 1980s, even founding her very own women's club. She was also a director of the Oxford United Football Club when her father was the owner. Her father had reportedly even purchased a luxury yacht and named it the Lady Ghislaine. Among the vast amenities that the yacht had were a jacuzzi, a gym, a sauna, and a disco. The yacht was christened at a shipyard in the Netherlands, and Ghislaine herself was reported to have spent days on end in the yacht. Talk about living the high life. However, Robert Maxwell was also allegedly part of some pretty shady deals and had gotten Ghislaine looped in. On November 5th, 1990, Ghislaine had unknowingly delivered an envelope on behalf of her father that apparently was part of a ploy to steal $200 million from Berlitz shareholders. Tragedy struck the Maxwell family in November 1991 when Robert Maxwell's body was found floating in the sea. It was near the Canary Islands and where the yacht, the Lady Ghislaine, was docked. Authorities have since then ruled Robert Maxwell's death as an accidental drowning, but Ghislaine believes otherwise. She claims that their father was murdered, saying he did not commit suicide. That was just not consistent with his character. I think he was murdered. More of Robert Maxwell's shady business dealings surfaced after his death, with the misappropriation of the pension funds of the Mirror Group newspapers. The company was run by Robert Maxwell, and he controlled a large portion of the company. It was reported that over 440 million euros were missing, and his remaining family was left to pay back the affected parties. 2 of Ghislaine Maxwell's brothers, Ian and Kevin, were arrested on June 19, 1992 for fraud. In 1991, Ghislaine Maxwell finally moved to the United States. She made headlines because of the expensive costs of her travels, in spite of the pension fraud scandal. She settled herself in a New York City apartment, earning about 80,000 euros annually from a trust fund her father had set up for her. She also socialized with numerous celebrities and New York's elite, and quickly rose up to become a New York socialite. Now, how did Ghislaine Maxwell go from being a social butterfly to facing a good number of years behind bars? Well, it probably started when she became romantically linked to the American financier Jeffrey Epstein. Now, there's no specific date of when exactly she had met Epstein, but various sources claim that Robert Maxwell had introduced the pair in the late 1980s. Other accounts claim that Ghislaine Maxwell had met Jeffrey Epstein at a party in the 1990s. However, regardless of how they met, the two became a couple in the late 1990s and remained closely associated in the years after. Jeffrey Epstein had switched from teaching to being a financier and earned quite a lot of money, putting up his own firm. He was one of the elites, often hosting lavish parties with the rich and famous. However, in spite of his money and high-flying lifestyle, Jeffrey Epstein was actually the lowest of the low. He was a convicted sex offender, and he has been arrested multiple times for sexual abuse and sex trafficking. In 2005, Epstein had been arrested upon the complaint of a mom who claimed that Jeffrey Epstein had sexually abused her teenage daughter. Epstein pleaded guilty to this and served roughly 13 months in custody. Federal officials had discovered that Jeffrey Epstein had allegedly sexually abused 36 girls, some even as young as 14 years old. On July 6, 2019, Epstein was arrested once more, this time on federal charges for sex trafficking of underage girls. A little over a month later, on August 10, 2019, Epstein was found dead in his jail cell. His death was ruled a suicide, but people are suspicious of what actually caused his death. But wait, what does that all have to do with Ghislaine Maxwell? Well, on July 2, 2020, Ghislaine Maxwell was arrested on multiple charges related to the sexual abuse of young women and girls with Jeffrey Epstein. However, the ball was set rolling in January 2015. A civil lawsuit accusing Ghislaine Maxwell of grooming a young girl to perform sexual acts on Jeffrey Epstein was filed. Later on, it was revealed to be Virginia Roberts Giuffre, who had met Maxwell at Donald Trump's club at Mar-a-Lago. Maxwell had accused Giuffre of being a liar, which Giuffre responded by suing her with defamation. The case was settled in 2017, with Maxwell having to pay Giuffre millions. However, after that, a lawsuit was filed by Sarah Ransom against both Epstein and Maxwell for Maxwell's coercion for Ransom to give Epstein massages. According to Ransom, if she refused, Maxwell threatened to hurt or to destroy her career. The case was settled in 2018. It did not stop there. Numerous other women like Maria Farmer, Jennifer Araos, a Priscilla Doe, a Jane Doe, and Annie Farmer came forward and filed complaints against Maxwell and Epstein for sexual predation, sexual assault, sex trafficking, rape, battery, and false imprisonment. Together, the two had destroyed the lives of many women, some of whom may not have even come forward yet to tell their story. Things heated up even more for Ghislaine Maxwell when on July 2, 2019, the United States Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit ordered that documents of the earlier suit filed against Maxwell by Virginia Giuffre be unsealed. Ghislaine Maxwell tried to appeal to have the documents remain sealed, but her plea was dismissed, and a first batch of documents were released on August 9, 2019. It was confirmed on December 27, 2019, that Ghislaine Maxwell was under investigation by the Federal Bureau of Investigation for a part in Jeffrey Epstein's illegal activities. After Epstein had been arrested, Maxwell had gone into hiding, and the authorities immediately attempted to locate her whereabouts. Apparently, Maxwell has quite the history of disappearing during the time she needs to show up in court. Her lawyers would claim they don't know her whereabouts, or that she's traveling abroad and has no permanent address. In January 2020, Maxwell allegedly refused to allow her lawyers to be given a few lawsuits wherein her name was stated. However, she could not hide all her life. Eventually, she would have to face all the crimes that she committed, and ultimately pay for them. On July 2, 2020, Ghislaine Maxwell was arrested by the Federal Bureau of Investigation in Bradford, New Hampshire. She was charged with enticement of minors, sex trafficking, and perjury. She's currently being held at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, New York, with her lawyers requesting that she be released on a $5 million bond and home arrest while she waits for her trial. This is part of what the indictment states. from at least in or about 1994 up to and including at least in or about 1997, Maxwell assisted, facilitated, and contributed to Jeffrey Epstein's abuse of minor girls by, among other things, helping Epstein to recruit, groom, and ultimately abuse victims known to Maxwell and Epstein to be under the age of 18. The victims were as young as 14 years old when they were groomed and abused by Maxwell and Epstein, both of whom knew that certain victims were in fact under the age of 18. What are your thoughts on the case of Ghislaine Maxwell? Do you think she should have received a much harsher sentence for her involvement? Let me know what you think and let's talk about it in the comments section below. I'll be responding to all of you who comment within the first hour. If you found this video intriguing, you should definitely check out my other video called The Israeli and UAE Peace Treaty Explained to figure out the intricacies of the peace deal between Israel and the United Arab Emirates. This historic agreement between the two nations was created to normalize the diplomatic relations happening within the region, and it initially came as a surprise to the rest of the global community. Find out how and why this treaty was established when you watch the Israeli and UAE Peace Treaty Explained. Stay tuned, stay educated.